I'm David Spicer. I oversee the Office of Policy and Advocacy in Migration and Refugee Services at the USCCB. And the Religious Worker Visa Program is a program that's been around for several decades now. It allows foreign-born religious workers from around the world to come to the United States and to minister within kind of the full range of faith traditions that we have here. So among those, of course, is the Catholic Church and Catholic dioceses and parishes around the United States. Many of them have foreign-born priests and women religious and religious brothers and even lay people who are serving here either for a temporary period of time on an R1 visa, the temporary visa, or on a permanent immigrant visa known as the EB-4 visa, which results in a green card for people who come that way, and it allows them to stay here permanently and eventually even to become US citizens if they so choose. The Religious Worker Visa Program is very much depended upon by Catholic communities as well as the communities of other traditions in the United States. Our office just conducted a survey within the past few months, and we received responses from about 70% of the dioceses in the United States, and 90% of them currently employ foreign-born religious workers. So it's not only because of a lack or a shortage of US-born religious workers, but there's also a need just because of the sheer diversity of the US Catholic Church to have religious workers from the places from which we have large numbers of immigrants. So for example, in the Archdiocese of Chicago, they may have a large Polish population, and there may be a need to have priests and other ministers from Poland who have the linguistic and cultural competency to minister to those people. And so without the Religious Worker Visa Program, we may have Catholics in our country who are unable to access the sacraments or practice their faith to the full extent because we wouldn't have those ministers. We find foreign-born religious workers are especially in larger dioceses that have perhaps a greater geographic scope to cover and more parishes to staff. We also see a lot of foreign-born religious workers in urban dioceses, again, where we have these concentrations of different immigrant populations that need to be served. And so there's a lot of reasons why we would need foreign-born religious workers in the Catholic context. That many of our interfaith partners, including those in traditions outside of the Christian tradition, rely even more on these foreign-born religious workers because they don't have the same sort of domestic infrastructure or domestic institutions of formation that we have as a church. And so Hindus and Buddhists, for example, almost rely exclusively on foreign-born workers. Since April of last year, we have seen a really significant expansion in the backlog for the EB-4 visa. And there was a change made by the Department of State in how it allocates and provides those visas to applicants within that category. And so we now have a situation where there are about 155,000 people in line for this visa. And this visa is unique because it's used by religious workers, it's used by foreign broadcasters, former members of the US Armed Services, and several other classes of immigrants. And they're all dependent on this class of visa that only has about 10,000 visas available per year. And so with the 155,000 people who are currently in line for this visa, if a priest or woman religious or some other religious worker were to apply today, he or she is waiting about 15 years from today before that visa becomes available. And this change is mostly the result of the significant number of vulnerable children who are coming to the United States from Central America and other parts of the world. Those vulnerable children if deemed eligible by a state, family, or juvenile court, could be eligible for what's known as special immigrant juvenile status. And these special immigrant juveniles rely on the same category of visas as religious workers. And the conference has been advocating for those children to be treated more like other humanitarian populations, such as refugees or those who are granted asylum, who aren't subject to an annual visa cap. And so there's a bill, the Protect Vulnerable Immigrant Youth Act, which would exempt out those vulnerable children from this EB-4 visa category. That would free up those approximately 10,000 visas per year, and it would really address this issue. It's only something Congress is empowered to do. Only Congress can pass legislation that would provide this solution. And so that's where we've been advocating for the legislative change, and we've also been working with the administration to try to bring about some administrative relief in the absence of the necessary congressional action. As we continue to work toward what we feel is ultimately the needed solution, that is congressional action, we have been very fortunate to work with the administration, the White House, the Department of State, the Department of Homeland Security on potential opportunities for the administration itself unilaterally to bring about some relief for communities that depend on religious workers. One of those things is to shorten the time between temporary visas. So somebody can come on an R1 visa for up to 5 years, and then once they reach the end of that 5-year period, they have to leave the United States for at least 1 year before possibly coming on a subsequent R1 visa. And this is something that can be changed through a regulation. So the administration can shorten that time frame from 1 year down to, for example, we've requested 30 days, while allowing them to leave for a shorter period and to return sooner to the communities that they're serving is certainly preferable to the status quo, and would really go a long way to help Catholic dioceses and parishes and other institutions to continue the good work that they're doing. I would absolutely encourage people who are interested in this issue, perhaps those who have a priest from outside of the United States, who they depend upon, again, for the sacraments, for celebrating Mass, for all of these things that foreign-born priests and religious workers do, to visit the USCCB website, usccb.org, and to go to the Action Center of the USCCB, which has an action alert that allows those who are interested and engaged to make their voices heard with their members of Congress, and to express concern about this issue in particular, and to convey support for the Protect Vulnerable Immigrant Youth Act, again, which would resolve the underlying backlog, freeing up these visas for religious workers and ensuring that these vulnerable children also have access to the relief for which they've been deemed eligible.